Okay, what's up guys? So, Nick, you're being creepy. Okay, so we started on the steering. We're actually going to the wrecking yard tomorrow to get some of the parts for the steering. So instead of sitting around waiting for parts, we have a timeline. So we are gonna start on the floors. So the Z is up in the air. So let me show you what we've got to work with. It is pretty nasty. Okay, so Datsun floors are gone. See, we've got holes there all the way up that high on the trans tunnel. You can stick a foot through that one. Little Flintstone action. Previous owner hit some things, so those rails are really dented. I think the other side is even worse. Just a lot of rust overall, but those large holes definitely need to get addressed before we go any farther. Yeah, and this is the passenger side. Actually off-roaded the thing. I mean, that's probably what I would do. So we have some floorboard replacement. So these are the floorboards that I got. These are from Z Findings. Charles is up in Canada actually, and his were some of my favorite patches. It's a little more coming from Canada, but he does a really nice job. He even goes as far as oiling the raw steel. So these have been sitting on the shelf for about a year. That's sad to say. They've been sitting on the shelf for a year and I have zero rust. So that little extra step was awesome. We will have to do some extra corner patches because these don't extend as far up as my rust does. But we've got the 2 floor pans and 2 of the frame rails. So about 18 gauge steel. I've got some scrap to do those corners. That is very rusty. We're kind of going to be speeding through this because we have this deadline, and so our videos aren't going to be as in-depth, but hopefully you guys can get something from this and see how bad it is to replace your floorboards on a Z. So let's get to work. Nick's on the Doritos. Ready? Okay, let's go. Come on. Unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to do this on the lift because all of our lift points are what we're cutting out. But while it's on the lift, we can start by pulling these fuel lines out and get, I think that should be, that's probably all we can do while it's on the lift. And then we'll have to do some wood blocks to get it off the ground a bit. Alright, so we got the Z off the lift and I spent a lot of time building us our first little steps, little Jenga squares, to get her up off the ground, and it's up quite a ways now. That should make it a lot easier to access out up underneath there. Okay, and for anyone wanting to build these are 16 inches long. We went 10 rows high. I built, so this would be the bottom, this would be our base. So every board into the base has 2 screws on each end. So total 320 screws for all of these bases. But they feel pretty solid. They aren't just set there. And for the inside, we have to gut everything. So I'll be pulling everything off the floors, probably pulling the carpet, pulling the seat belts. We have to remove the spot welds for these. And yeah, so time to get to work on that. Okay, moment of truth right here. Not too bad. I still have some steel. Maybe a little thin there, but not terrible. Alright, so searching for spot welds. I'm gonna start on the seat brackets here. Some of them are really easy to see. Let's see, we've got one there, got one there. But hopefully yours aren't as rusty as mine because there's no finding a spot weld in all that rust. So a lot of this is just gonna be guessing. Oh, wire wheel works okay. The best thing is a Harbor Freight belt sander. All right, so back in the shop. I tried pulling those seat brackets and it was a mess. Those spot welds are terrible. So I'm gonna use those seat brackets as a guide to bring my patch up to, just so I know where the floor used to be and I'm not super out of level. So we are gonna try out the cheap Amazon plasma and get to cutting. Side note, it is a balmy 42 degrees in the shop today, which is awesome. It's been in the 30s and the 20s, but it's still really, really cold. So we are in coveralls, Nick's putting more in the heater, and I was just doing a little happy dance to try and warm up, and it actually worked. It's pretty good now. Coveralls were 42 degrees too, so that was great. Guys, I'm really nervous to cut into my car right now with a big plasma torch. Ah! Well, I think a lot of it is trying to run over rust, so it's not grounding out well.
Yeah.
It's doing it, it's just not happy about it. I can Flintstone now! Nice.
You're making a mess.
Alright, another day on the Z working on the floorboards, and we got some funky music playing. Nick is going to be working on the steering, and Forrest is pressure washing the fuel tank, and Lena's being Lena. So, I'm not going to time lapse because we don't have space on our phones for time lapses anymore. We're out of space. I'm going to square up all my cuts and get all the edges prepped for welding, and then we'll fit the patch. We should take care of it. So when you need to hold down the floor pan for a long period of time, you could just put the diff down. Works pretty good, except it wasn't heavy enough because it's a baby diff. So strong.
Now you're in my way. Hi.
Hi. I found a hole in that spot.
Uh-oh.
We have to patch it. More patches.
You just tack weld a bunch?
Yeah, lots of times.
Good thing you know how to do that.
I guess. I'm trying. Okay, so this is the driver's side. Hi, Nick. Driver's side is the worst side. I had rust way up past what the actual patch had material for, so I had to put in extra material up there, and then it came clear back to here, and I actually had to do a spot. It took a lot of fab, guys. I had to add extra reliefs along the edge there to get it to form, and it just took a ton of time and a lot of hammering. I wouldn't say it's a straightforward drop-in patch, but overall it looks good. Over here I did spot welds just like the factory. That's how your original floor pans are, and then along these edges I solid tacked it, and then I'll be doing seam sealer on, I can't decide if it's gonna be one side or both sides. All right, and for underneath, I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. You have to transition from the factory frame rail height to that patch frame rail. So I had to do that. It's not a rust hole, it's just shaved down, drainage hole. And let's see. So those are all spot welded like your factory ones, all the way down. When I first put these on, it freaked me out because there was a huge gap here. I'd say like an inch here in the middle, like it was bowed up. So I tried a few different things. The best thing that worked was a mallet, just a rubber mallet, just to knock that metal down. It'll get covered up with carpet anyways. So that was the best way I found to bring that back down. So those are all flush. I hate body welds, they look so gross. But this will all be covered with undercoating. So these corners were interesting to form. I really like that corner. That was a good corner. So yeah. So now on to passenger side. Okay, so Nick did the cutting over here while I was finishing up over there. This side is a lot better. We aren't worried about any of this metal. So that's going to save a ton of time not trying to cut around the seat braces. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it, but the seat braces I left in here, it actually helped me find my height. So I left the seat braces and I left about this much of the frame rail on the other side. So when we dropped in the patch under the seat rails and onto the frame rail, you don't have to worry about your height or your level because that helps you find it. And I think this one will go a lot faster. The only extra part we have to do over here, don't look at that, that's a later video, is the frame rail is worse over here. So actually all of this is rusted out here, and then we're rusted through there too. So all of this has to go. So I'm actually just gonna do a full patch on the underside of the frame because the sides are good. So we'll do a full patch on the bottom of the frame and then transition it into a frame patch here and the floorboard patch. Nick actually did a wonderful job cutting this out in mostly one piece, so I had a template. So I laid the template on our patch, and that's what that inner line is drawn around the scrap piece, and then I added about an inch around because I'd rather have too much material than short material. So we'll cut that out and get to fitting. Alright, so here's this trimmed patch. This is how it drops in. It's really rough, so you can see we're hitting along here, but where I'm really seeing it's sitting crooked and it's not sitting all the way down to that frame rail. So there's actually a big gap between that edge and that edge. So what I'm going to do, this is what I did on the other side, I'm going to cut a few extra relief cuts. So the patch panel originally came with some, but we cut them off because our damage isn't that high. So I'm going to add a relief cut here, 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 and that should give us enough room so these will start bending up to form against that wall, and then we can trim out what we don't need. So start with that. Alright, little update. So I started by drilling holes for these spot welds. I started with the one side and then I was working my way this way. So what I found was these angles were actually different. So I don't think I ran into this on the other side because I did a full replacement, where on this one I'm merging this patch panel with the existing floor. So these are actually different. So I had to do a relief cut. Not sure if you can see that profile difference. There we go. So just a different bend. So basically I had to put the relief cut in just so I had a place for that metal to go. No hammer really would have moved that. It's really hard to see on camera. So anyways, now they're the same angle. I did tacks up to here, had to do another relief cut because these did not line up. And then that corner was fun as well. So you'll notice on the passenger side that your frame rail is offset. So you'll see one side is taller than the other side. Oh, that looks pretty good now. It took me a long time to get to this point. So this side was actually an inch high. And so I had to try and bring that down. It wouldn't come down with a hammer. And the reason it wouldn't come down with a hammer is because there was no, that metal wouldn't stretch. So I had to do one more relief cut here so this lower panel could come down. Yeah, that just kind of opened up that metal so it had a place to go. I didn't take out any extra material here, so that's how much of a relief that needed. It's about 1/8 of an inch. And on the little patch here doing the corner, I didn't have enough material to go all the way up. But yeah, I just wanted to note that. So if you're having something that's not moving, I did it on the other side, along the side, and I put a couple extras here. I really like doing a relief cut because then you're not fighting the material. It'll actually bend down the way it should. And this gap will weld up just fine. So, okay, back to welding. And today our high is 40 degrees. It's getting colder outside. Nice. Okay, so before I weld out the floor pan on this side, I actually want to get the frame rail put up. I made that mistake last time and I'm not sure if that's what caused it, but I welded out the driver's side all the way before I put this up, and there was a huge bubble, almost like an inch gap, when I went to go fit the frame rail up. So I'm hoping if I get this up first, it shouldn't distort at all. So one thing that I do need to address for the fit up of the frame rail is on the other side it was a lot easier because I just replaced the whole frame rail from the firewall back. But on this one, I'm leaving the end because that's still in good shape. And these aftermarket frame rails actually will not conform to the original floor pan. There's a big dip here. There's a few features that it just won't work with. So I'm leaving the end here since we left this floor pan part. And I'm gonna splice here. And I'm gonna splice there. So obviously we have an issue. The frame rail patch is not the same height, especially once you start getting here. So my cut line for this side will be here, and same on the other side. Take this all out and then we'll just put a patch up in here and transition it really smooth there. Now on the back, so this side doesn't look bad, but what I didn't check was this side. This side's a good 1/4 inch off. So I'm just gonna do the same thing that I'm doing up front here. On the inside, I'm just gonna cut this back, take this material out, and then move this up. So it's right in line all the way down. And there's actually, if you look down, it'll actually straighten out the frame too. So that frame patch is pretty flat, but then there's a weird tilt on this existing frame rail. So that'll take care of that too. So I will get all that done and then get you guys back under here and show you how it's all fit up, because that's not gonna fly. So front frame rail, this is not a good sign. That is all rust. There it goes. There's actually like a divider plate in here that was catching us. Oh, it smells like so much better. Okay, yep, still under the car. So this is where we're at right now. I have that back frame rail has been shortened. So now we're level there. And I actually shortened it all the way to the back, so it wouldn't have a weird hump at the end. That, and then the front one was tricky. That was the one that had the rust repair. So I actually cut out this whole underside and then cut this ear off here. Now we've got a really smooth transition into that frame rail patch. So I'm gonna go ahead and weld this one up like I did the back and then blend it really well. And I'll add that ear back on. All right, so the floorboards are done. We got everything welded out, smoothed down, painted, and some seam sealer down. So let me show you what the final product looks like. All right, so here's that final passenger side frame rail patch. I'm really happy with how that turned out. No more rust. And then we Painted it with a matte black. There'll be a video upcoming on that. And obviously did some more work. Those will be future videos. But I just went through and added seam seal along that bottom seal there. I also added seam seal down the frame rail. And you can't see it because it's under this DEI transmission shield, but I also added seam seal on the rest of my seams as well. And I will add the link to that in the description. It's just a 3M seam seal product. Went pretty good. If you're worried about how this looks, you could always add some undercoating over it. I didn't get that far, so just the paint looked fine for me. You really aren't gonna be able to see that once the wheel well's in there. And then the rear frame rail patch, can't even really tell. I guess it would be right there. That blend. And then actually you can really see where the difference in the floor pans right there. And for the driver's side, more seam seal on all of the seams. It's a little dirty now because it's actually driven down the road. And our blend here, this one's not as good as the passenger side, but it'll hold. Got some new rubber grommets in there. Seam seal all on these seams. And then we've got the DEI transmission tunnel shield covering up this side of it. So all those welds I didn't like are all covered up. Much better. Don't worry about that. That's future problems. Just look at the new floorboards. All right, that's gonna wrap up this video. Floor pans are in the Z, and I'm happy. I'm happy. That was my first time ever replacing floor pans, and it was very, very scary to start. But now that we're through it, it's really not too bad. But we're still learning. So if anybody has any tips, most of these Zs you have to do these floor pans on. So I'm sure there's a lot of you that have done this and that may have some advice. So if you have that, drop it in the comments. And yeah, I hope this helps somebody. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.